The preferred method of interpersonal communication between young people now is texting rather than face-to-face communication.
Right, and the swiping that apes don't.
Well, that's a very interesting topic too. Like the Tinder phenomenon. Because that's also a major technological revolution. Because what it's done, I would say, for the first time, is reduce the cost of rejection to males to zero. Because it hides it. The only people you ever hear from are people who haven't rejected you.
Although true, but there was one man who had to make 300, he actually tallied it.
Yeah.
He had to make 300 requests of swiping right or whatever for
to
one reply. So I think he had the sense of rejection.
Sure, but it's massively attenuated.
Yeah.
And it's not observed.
Yeah, you're not being humiliated.
Not at all.
Right.
Not at all. It's really at arm's length, and you can swipe very, very rapidly, and so you can get all that rejection over with in a very short period of time.
Right. It's like losing a video game or something.
Less. Because
worse. Not nearly as bad.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know what. And I mean, Tinder also reduces one of the other things that you want to think about with regards to sex, and I think this is probably particularly true for women, is that to what degree is it in women's interests to allow the cost of sex to fall to zero? Because with pornography certainly does that. And it just seems to me that that's not a very good long-term strategy for relationships between men and women, because whatever sex is worth, the cost of zero is the wrong price. Mm-hmm. And so, I've heard from a number of women read blog reports on their frustration with their attempts to be relatively sexually selective. Like, let's say they decide that they're not going to sleep with their new partner on the first date. They're frustrated by the fact that to the degree that they're being cautious in their sexual behavior, which I think is actually an admirable idea, that they're instantly outcompeted, especially if their partners are somewhat impulsive, by women who will say yes at the drop of a hat. And so, well, again, I don't think, it depends on what the goal is. That's the thing, is that there's short-term sexual gratification, but the literature indicates that married couples, for example, or couples in a permanent long-term monogamous relationship are more sexually satisfied than single people. And maybe the single people have to be parsed out into those who are sexually successful and those who aren't. But I suspect that wouldn't make that much difference. But whatever. There's the utility of relatively immediate sexual gratification, for whatever that's worth, and the adventurousness that goes along with that, let's say. The hunt and the excitement of having a new partner and all of that. And maybe even the danger that's associated with that, because people like to have a little bit of danger in their life. But what's the goal? It's like, what do people want? And I mean, there's a great book called A Billion Wicked Thoughts that was written by Google engineers. And so it contains great psychology, because Google engineers don't care about political correctness, and they just write down what they find, and they don't even notice that it's politically incorrect. Hence James Damore, for example. And what they found was that women use pornography just as much as men, but the pornography that women use is verbal. It's not imagistic. And that the pornographic novels, essentially, follow the same extraordinarily standard plot line, to the degree that publishing houses like Harlequin,
I was going to say it's the bodice rippers, the
romance
romance novels.
Yeah, right. So in the Harlequin series, you have the ones that were published like in the 1970s that are they're tame. There's a small bit
they're pretty hot, actually.
Well, there's a variety. They range from completely tame to essentially to hardcore pornography. But the plots are quite similar, and the plot is young, relatively innocent woman finds powerful, interesting, dangerous male, tames him, and then they live happily ever after.
Love.
Yeah, and it's the Beauty and the Beast plot.